never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but here we are. To set the stage, I, 28M, grew up in a small Midwestern town where my parents owned a family-run business. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well enough for them to live comfortably. From the time I was 12, I was expected to help out, sweeping floors, working the cash register, even handling deliveries when I got my license. My parents always told me, "One day this will all be yours if you stay loyal." That promise shaped my whole life. While my friends were partying in high school, I was working weekends at the shop. While others left for college, I stayed local and commuted to community college so I could keep working there. My parents said it would all be worth it. I'd inherit the business, financial stability, and a guaranteed career path. But things didn't play out like that. When I was 24, I had an opportunity to transfer to a university out of state. I was accepted into a great business program. I wanted to learn how to expand the shop, maybe even franchise it. I thought my parents would be proud. Instead, they blew up. My dad told me I was selfish and abandoning the family. My mom cried and said, "If you leave, don't expect us to support you." I left anyway. I worked 2 jobs while studying. I ate ramen and skipped meals. I missed family holidays because I couldn't afford the plane ticket. They rarely called except for the occasional guilt trip. "Your cousin is helping us. Too bad you're too busy with your fancy degree." Fast forward to graduation. I landed a good job at a logistics company in Chicago. It paid well, more in a year than my parents made running the shop. For the first time in my life, I felt free, independent. I thought maybe, once things settled, I could reach out and rebuild our relationship. Then came the call. My parents' business is failing. A big chain competitor opened nearby, and they're losing customers. They said they need my expertise to save them. Suddenly, the same parents who told me I was selfish now claim I owe them because they raised me and gave me a strong work ethic. Here's the kicker. They don't just want advice. They want me to quit my job, move back home, and run the business full-time for free until it's profitable again. When I refused, my dad called me an ungrateful brat. My mom said, "Family comes before money. What happened to you?" I told them bluntly, "You made your choice when you cut me off. Now I'm making mine." They hung up on me. Now the extended family is blowing up my phone, saying I'm heartless. My aunt texted, "Your parents gave you everything. You're just going to let them fail?" Even my younger brother, who never lifted a finger in the shop, called me to say I was being cruel. So, Reddit, here I am. Am I the asshole for refusing to help my parents after they abandoned me when I needed them most? The morning after that phone call, I woke up to 26 missed calls and over 40 text messages. Not just from my parents, but from nearly every relative in my contacts list. Aunts, uncles, cousins I haven't spoken to in years. Suddenly they all had something to say. My Aunt Carol left me a 3-minute voicemail crying about how family is supposed to stick together in hard times. My Uncle Ron, who hasn't spoken to me since I was 12, texted, "Guess your fancy city job made you forget your roots. Don't worry, you'll get what's coming." Even my grandmother, who I love dearly, called to say, "Sweetheart, please, you know they can't do this without you. Just go home for a while." It's not just guilt trips either. Some relatives got hostile. My cousin Emily sent me a screenshot of a Facebook post my mom made. So sad to see what money and pride can do to someone. Some people would rather watch their family suffer than lend a helping hand. We raised our children with love, but sadly not all of them remember that. That post had over 70 comments from family friends. People I grew up with in church, old neighbors, piling on about how kids these days are selfish. Reading those comments felt like a punch to the gut. Strangers who knew me as a kid now thought I was some kind of monster. I wanted to ignore it all, but then I got a call from my younger brother, Jake, 25M. Now, Jake was never much help at the shop. He was always the golden child. He played sports, went to parties, and our parents never forced him to work shifts the way they did with me. He's still living at home, bouncing between jobs. His call started civil enough, asking me to reconsider. But when I explained again, that I can't just throw away my career to rescue the business, he snapped. He said, "You think you're better than us because you left. But at the end of the day, this is your family, not some corporate ladder to climb." When I told him I wasn't budging, he actually laughed and said, "Fine. Don't come crawling back when Mom and Dad cut you out of the will." That's when it hit me. This wasn't about saving the business for the family's sake. It was about control. My parents and brother are terrified of losing the one thing that gave them status in town. They're not asking me to help. They're demanding I sacrifice everything to keep their legacy alive. But here's the part one haven't told anyone yet. My boss at work actually heard about this mess. Long story short, a mutual acquaintance from back home spilled the drama. Instead of being sympathetic, my boss pulled me aside and said, "Don't let them drag you back down. You've got real talent here. Don't throw it away." And I agree with him. But the more my phone blows up with angry messages, the more I start questioning myself. Am I being selfish? Couldn't I just take some vacation time, go home for a month, and at least give them advice? Or would that just pull me deeper into the trap? Because if there's one thing I know about my parents, it's that once I step back into that store, they'll never let me leave again. So now I'm stuck between my family, who sees me as the villain, and my new life, where I finally feel like I belong. Reddit. Am I really the asshole here? Or am I finally breaking free from a cycle that was designed to keep me chained to their business forever? Since so many of you asked for more context, let me rewind a bit and explain why this whole thing cuts so deep. My childhood was basically tied to that store. From the time I was old enough to push a broom, I was expected to help. At first, I didn't mind sweeping floors, stocking shelves. But by middle school, I was doing full cashier shifts on weekends while my friends were at sleepovers or football games. If I complained, my dad would bark, "Do you think money grows on trees? This is for your future." High school, forget it. My summer vacations weren't trips to the lake or hanging out with friends. They were 12-hour shifts behind the counter. I learned how to handle irate customers, balance the register, even negotiate with vendors, before I had a driver's license. Meanwhile, my younger brother Jake lived a completely different reality. He played baseball, went to parties, dated whoever he wanted. Our parents doted on him like he was the second coming of Babe Ruth. Anytime he was supposed to help out at the store, suddenly he had practice or homework, and my parents always excused it. "He needs to focus on his future. You're the responsible one. You'll understand someday." That responsible one line became a running theme. Every time Jake slacked, I picked up the slack. Every time he messed up, I was expected to fix it. I remember one weekend when Jake was supposed to cover a Saturday shift. He bailed last minute to go to a party. My dad dragged me out of bed at 7 a.m., yelling that family doesn't flake. I worked a 14-hour day with no break, while Jake posted pictures on Facebook with his friends. I'd bring it up, of course. I'd tell my parents it wasn't fair, that Jake was getting a free pass. And every single time, the response was, "Stop comparing yourself to your brother. He has different strengths. Besides, you're the one who's going to inherit this business. Don't you want it to succeed?" That line, "You'll inherit this someday," was their golden carrot. They dangled it in front of me to keep me obedient. I bought into it. I gave up scholarships to state schools because I thought staying close was the smart move. I turned down internships in the city because the store needs you this summer. But here's the cruel part. When I finally decided to leave for university, that promise evaporated. Suddenly, it wasn't your future business. It was, how could you betray us? Like all those years of free labor meant nothing. I remember the day I told my dad I got accepted into the business program. He didn't congratulate me. He didn't smile. He just stared and said, "So you're throwing away everything we've built for you?" My mom cried like I told her I was moving to Mars. Jake? He smirked, like he knew something I didn't. Looking back, maybe he did. Because now, with the way things are playing out, I'm starting to wonder if the business was ever really meant for me. Maybe I was just the workhorse to keep it running until Jake was ready to take over. Maybe I was never the heir, just the help. And if that's true, then their demand for me to come home and save us isn't about family at all. It's about squeezing the last bit of free labor out of me before the ship sinks. A few days after the family drama exploded, I got a call from my mom. I almost didn't answer. My phone anxiety was through the roof at this point, but part of me hoped she was calling to make peace. Nope, it was another guilt trip. She started off soft, her voice breaking like she'd been crying. Honey, do you really want to see our life's work just die? We're not getting any younger. This business is what your father and I built together, brick by brick. Do you want it all to end with us? I'll admit it got to me. Hearing her sound so small and broken pulled at something deep inside me. For a second, I almost said, okay, Mom, I'll come home for a while. But then she kept talking. We sacrificed everything for you kids. We gave you food, a roof over your head, clothes on your back. And now, when we're asking for just a little help, you're too busy chasing your big city dreams? There it was. The same line I've heard my whole life. We gave you everything, so you owe us. I reminded her that they cut me off when I left for college, that I worked 2 jobs just to survive. She brushed it off. That was just tough love. We wanted to teach you independence. And it worked, didn't it? Look at you now. That made my stomach turn. They weren't apologizing. They were reframing abandonment as a favor. I stayed calm and said, Mom, I can give you advice. I can even connect you with resources. But I can't quit my job and move back. I've worked too hard for this. Her tone shifted instantly from weepy to sharp. So money means more to you than family. Do you even hear yourself? You sound just like those corporate sharks you work for. Cold, selfish, heartless. I tried to explain that it's not about money, it's about survival. I've built a career I actually enjoy. I finally have stability. Why should I throw that away for a business that's been bleeding customers for years? But she wouldn't listen. Instead, she pulled out the nuclear card. One day when we're gone, you're going to regret this. You'll regret not being there when we needed you most. Is that really what you want hanging over your conscience? That one hit me hard. I'm not made of stone. The thought of my parents dying and me living with that guilt. It nearly cracked me. But then I remembered being 19, begging them for help with tuition, and hearing my dad say, "You made your bed, now lie in it." I remembered spending Christmas alone in a crappy apartment while they sent Jake to Florida for a baseball tournament. I remembered every broken promise about, someday this will all be yours. And I realized something. This wasn't about legacy or love. It was about control. They weren't asking, they were demanding. And they'd use guilt, shame, or outright lies to get their way. So I stood firm. I told her, "I love you, Mom, but I'm not coming back. Not now, not ever." She went silent. Then she whispered, "I don't even recognize you anymore." And then she hung up. I just sat there staring at my phone, feeling like someone had hollowed me out. Part of me wanted to cry, part of me wanted to scream, and part of me felt relieved. Because for the first time, I didn't cave. After the guilt trip call with my mom, I thought maybe things would cool down. Spoiler, they didn't. Instead, my younger brother Jake decided it was his turn to set me straight. He showed up unannounced at my apartment in Chicago. I don't even know how he got my address. I guess Mom gave it to him. I opened the door, and there he was, leaning against the frame like he owned the place. "Wow," he said, looking around my small but nice apartment. Not bad for someone who abandoned his family. That was his opener. Not hi. Not how are you. Just a jab. I told him to come in, partly because I didn't want my neighbors hearing the drama. We sat down, and he got straight to the point. "Mom and Dad are at their breaking point. You need to come back. They're not asking, they're begging. And honestly, it's pathetic watching you sit here while they suffer." I stayed calm and repeated what I'd said before. I'm not quitting my job. I'm not moving back. I offered to help with marketing ideas, connect them with people in my industry, even put them in touch with consultants. But Jake cut me off. "They don't want your advice, man. They want you to take responsibility. You're the one they were counting on." That's when I snapped. "They counted on me because they worked me like a mule while you got to play baseball and party. Don't lecture me about responsibility. Jake smirked, like he'd been waiting for that. Then he dropped the bomb. Dude, you really think this business was ever going to be yours? You were just keeping it afloat until I was ready. Mom and Dad always told me that. I'm the one they trust to carry it forward. You were just the helper. I swear my blood went cold. All those years of missed weekends, all the someday this will all be yours speeches. It was all a lie? I asked him. So they strung me along for years just to hand it over to you? He shrugged. Pretty much. I mean, come on, you're book smart, but you're not cut out to run a family business. You don't have the people skills. You're too corporate. I wanted to throw him out right then, but I couldn't move. My whole childhood, my whole identity had been built around that promise. And now my brother was sitting on my couch telling me it was never real. Jake leaned back and added, Look, if you come home and help us now, maybe Mom and Dad will forgive you. Maybe they'll even reconsider and give you a stake. But if you keep playing stubborn, don't expect to see a dime when they're gone. That's when it finally clicked. This wasn't about saving the family or even the business. This was about inheritance, control, power. Jake wasn't begging me to help out of love. He was protecting his future payday. I told him flat out, I don't care about the inheritance. I don't care about the store. I'm done being your backup plan. He laughed, shook his head and said, You'll regret this. When they're gone, and you're standing at the funeral with nothing, you'll wish you'd made a different choice. Then he walked out like he'd just won some kind of game. But the truth? For the first time, I felt like I wasn't playing their game anymore. After Jake's little visit, I couldn't stop replaying his words in my head. It was never yours. You were just the helper. It felt like someone had pulled the rug out from under my entire childhood. But things went from bad to worse a week later. I got a call. Not from my parents this time, but from an old family friend who used to work as their accountant. He told me he thought I deserved to know the truth. Apparently, the business isn't just struggling. It's drowning. My parents took out multiple loans over the past few years to keep it afloat, and when that wasn't enough, they refinanced the building itself. In other words, they mortgaged the store. The kicker? The loans are in both their names, but some of them were co-signed by Jake. When I asked why Jake would co-sign, the accountant said, Because your parents told the bank he'd be taking over management soon. They needed proof the future owner was on board. That's when it all made sense. The endless guilt trips. The sudden desperation for me to come home. It wasn't about saving the family business, it was about covering their debts. They wanted me to step in, run things, and shoulder the responsibility if or when the whole operation collapses. I called my mom after hearing this. I didn't even bother with pleasantries. I asked point blank, Did you mortgage the store? Did you put Jake on the loans? There was a long silence. Then she said, We had no choice. Times are hard. But if you come back, we can turn this around. I pressed further. So you were planning to let me give up my career? Sink my time and money into a business that's already in debt, just so you and Jake don't have to deal with the fallout? Her voice got sharp. Don't twist this. We built that store for you kids. We just need you to step up for once instead of running away. That line almost made me laugh. For once. As if I hadn't given them years of my life already. I asked her, Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the start? She snapped. Because you'd never have come home if you knew. Sometimes you have to protect people from themselves. Protect people from themselves? What she really meant was, manipulate you into doing what we want. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the ceiling, feeling sick. Not just because they lied, but because I realized how deep this manipulation runs. My parents aren't just drowning, they're trying to drag me under with them. And Jake is standing on the shore, ready to inherit whatever scraps are left. The next morning, I got another text from my dad. We'll be expecting you home this weekend. Don't disappoint us again. Like it was an order, not a request. That's when it hit me. They don't see me as a son. They see me as collateral. After finding out about the loans and realizing how far my parents were willing to go, I decided I needed answers face to face. No more cryptic phone calls or guilt-tripping texts. If they were going to demand I sacrifice everything, they were at least going to look me in the eye while they did it. So I drove back to my hometown for the first time in almost 2 years. Pulling into the parking lot of the store felt surreal. The building looked the same, but the lot was half empty. A huge chain competitor had opened less than a mile away, and you could feel the difference. This place felt like a ghost town. I walked in and saw my parents behind the counter. My mom looked shocked, almost relieved. My dad, though? He just crossed his arms like he was a general waiting for a soldier who'd deserted his post. "About time," he said. No hug, no hello, just those 2 words. I told them I wasn't there to work. I was there to talk. We went into the back office, the one where I'd spent countless hours as a kid doing inventory while Jake was out with his friends. The second the door shut, my dad launched into me. "You're selfish. After everything we've done for you, you're going to stand there and watch us lose everything? What kind of son are you?" I shot back. "The kind of son who gave you his entire childhood. The kind of son who worked weekends, holidays, summers, while Jake never lifted a finger. And now you want me to throw away my career for debts you didn't even tell me about?" My mom started crying, saying I was being cruel, but I couldn't stop. Years of resentment just spilled out. "You promised me this place. You promised it was my future. That's why I stayed. That's why I gave up scholarships, internships, a normal teenage life. And now Jake tells me it was never mine. That I was just the workhorse until he was ready." Their silence told me everything I needed to know. My dad finally muttered, "Jake has what it takes. He knows people. He can charm customers. You've always been too cold. Too focused on numbers." I almost laughed. Too focused on numbers? The very numbers that told me their debt was a sinking ship? The very skills that could have saved this business years ago if they'd actually listened to me? I told them, "No, I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your free labor. And I'm definitely not your scapegoat when this place goes under." That's when Jake strolled in, like he'd been waiting for his cue. He leaned against the doorway with that smug look he always had and said, "See, Mom? Told you he doesn't care. Just let him go back to his corporate life. He'll regret it when he's not in the will." Something inside me snapped. I turned to him and said, "Enjoy your inheritance, Jake. You can have the debt, too." The room went dead silent. My dad's face turned red. My mom sobbed harder. Jake just smirked like he'd won. But I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I said the thing they never thought I'd have the guts to say. I was done. I walked out of that office, past the empty shelves and flickering lights, and didn't look back. After that confrontation in the store, I drove back to Chicago shaking with adrenaline. My hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel the whole way. Part of me felt like I'd finally broken free, but another part couldn't stop hearing my dad's voice in my head. "What kind of son are you?" I tried to throw myself into work to keep from spiraling. And that's when the universe dropped something unexpected on my lap. My boss called me into her office. She's tough but fair, the kind of leader I've always respected. She said, "I know you've had a lot going on personally, but I need you focused because there's an opportunity. A big one." Turns out, our company was expanding to the West Coast, and they needed someone to help launch a new branch. She told me, "You've got the background, the skills, and the work ethic. If you want it, this could fast-track you into management." It was everything I'd worked for. Career-defining move. My chest felt tight, but in a good way. For once, my hard work was being recognized not as expected, but as valuable. That night, I got a call from my mom again. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. She didn't even say hello. She went straight into, "Your father and I heard about that promotion. If you take it, that's it. We're done. You'll be dead to this family." I froze. "How did you even hear about it?" She dodged the question and kept going. "If you really cared about us, you'd turn it down. You'd come home where you belong and save what we built. But instead, you're running farther away. If you do this, don't bother coming to visit. Don't bother calling. We'll consider it a betrayal." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They weren't just asking me to help. They were demanding I sabotage my own future to keep their failing business alive. When I told her no, she unleashed the full storm. Do you even hear yourself? You're choosing strangers over your own blood. We raised you better than this. We gave you life. The least you can do is give us yours back. That last sentence hit me like a punch. Give us yours back. That's exactly how they saw me. Not as a son with his own life, but as a resource to be mined until nothing was left. I took a deep breath and said, Mom, I'm not giving up my career. I've built this on my own without your help. You don't get to demand that I throw it away. She got quiet, then hissed, Don't say we never gave you anything. We gave you everything and you're spitting on it. And then she hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, my promotion offer sitting in my inbox, and I realized I was standing at a fork in the road. On one side was my family, their endless debts, and a lifetime of being their workhorse. On the other was a future I'd carved out for myself, one they never wanted me to have. For the first time in my life, I chose me. I emailed my boss and said yes. 2 months after I accepted the promotion, everything came crashing down back home. I got the news through Facebook first. A distant cousin posted a cryptic status. Sad day for our town. End of an era. Curious, I clicked the comments and saw it. My parents' store had officially shut its doors. The building was up for auction, and the bank had seized most of the inventory. I just sat there staring at the screen. A business I'd spent half my life keeping afloat, a place that had consumed my weekends and summers, was gone. Not because of me, but because my parents had refused to adapt. They ignored every suggestion I ever made, dismissed every warning, and doubled down on guilt instead of growth. And now it was dust. Of course, the fallout was immediate. My phone started buzzing again with angry texts from relatives. Hope you're happy. You let your parents lose everything. If you just stepped up for a few months, none of this would have happened. Selfish people always get what's coming. Even my grandmother, sweet, gentle grandma, called me crying. She said, Your parents are devastated. They've lost their livelihood. Everyone's saying you abandoned them. Honey, is it true? Hearing her voice crack nearly broke me. I love my grandma more than anyone. But I had to tell her the truth. No, Grandma. They abandoned me first. I just finally stopped letting them use me. She sighed, and I could tell she didn't want to pick sides. But silence feels like a side, too. Jake, of course, reached out next. His message was short and smug. Congrats. You killed the family legacy. Hope your fancy job was worth it. I almost fired back something cruel, but I didn't, because deep down, I knew he was just lashing out. He was the one on those loans. He was the one whose name was now attached to thousands of dollars in debt. And without the business, that debt wasn't family responsibility anymore. It was his. In some twisted way, my parents' golden child was finally tasting consequences. The town, meanwhile, turned on me completely. Small towns never forget and never forgive, especially when a local institution dies. Old neighbors unfriended me on Facebook. Former teachers who once praised me ignored me at the grocery store when I visited. To them, I wasn't the kid who worked 14-hour days to keep the lights on. I was the villain who abandoned my parents at their lowest point. At work, though, things were different. My boss praised me for crushing the West Coast project. I was earning more than I ever thought possible. For the first time, I could actually afford to take a vacation, travel, live. I should have been celebrating. But instead, I found myself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if maybe they were right. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe I should have sacrificed a year, even if it meant giving up everything I'd worked for. And then I remembered that night on the phone with my mom, when she said, Give us your life back. That's the truth. It was never going to be just a year. Once I stepped back into that store, I never would have left again. Still, I can't shake the guilt. I see the auction photos online, the shelves empty, the sign taken down, and I feel a strange mix of grief and relief, like mourning a part of myself I lost years ago. So here I am, Reddit. The store is gone. My parents blame me. My brother despises me. Half my family won't speak to me. And I'm sitting in a new apartment on the other side of the country, finally free. but wondering if freedom makes me the asshole. It's been 6 months since the store officially closed. My parents haven't called, and Jake stopped texting after the initial tirade about the killed legacy. My phone is quieter than it's been in years. Peaceful but oddly hollow. The day I saw the for sale sign go up outside the store, I felt something shift inside me. For years, I'd defined myself by that business, by loyalty, hard work, and sacrifice. And now it was gone. Yet, for the first time, I realized I wasn't defined by it anymore. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need the false promise of inheritance or the constant threat of guilt. I had my own life, my own career, and my own dignity. Grandma eventually called. She spoke softly, apologizing for the chaos, for the pressure, for her part in it. She didn't ask me to fix anything. She didn't even ask me to forgive anyone. She just said, "I hope you know we still love you, and it's okay to live your life." That one call brought tears. A small, quiet acknowledgement that some love had survived the storm. I don't talk to my parents much. They left me a single message months later. "We hope you're happy, even if we're not." I didn't respond. Part of me wants closure. Part of me knows that closure would mean validating a lifetime of manipulation. I can't do that. Jake, well, he's managing whatever scraps the business left behind. I don't know how he's doing financially, and honestly, I don't care. He got exactly what he wanted. Control, inheritance, the illusion of responsibility. But without the business thriving, I suspect it's heavier than he imagined. I'll let him learn the lesson I spent years learning. Manipulation may give you short-term wins, but it can't create loyalty or respect. I still get messages from extended family, some polite, some accusatory. How could you let them fail? Aren't you ashamed? Family before money. Most of them I ignore. Some I respond to with a simple, honest line. I survived being used. I can't help where I wasn't wanted. The irony is sharp. People see me as heartless, yet the only reason I survived my childhood and built a life was by protecting myself. Every sacrifice I made was swallowed by the expectation of eternal servitude. And now, finally, I'm free from that. I won't lie, I feel guilt sometimes. Grief too. A part of me mourns the loss of what could have been. A family that actually supported me, a business I could have been proud of, a life without betrayal. But I also feel relief. Relief I've never felt before. Relief that I can finally make decisions for me, and no one else. So here's my final thought. Reddit. I didn't abandon them. They abandoned me first, emotionally, financially, and morally. I finally stopped being the workhorse, the backup plan, the object of guilt trips and manipulation. I chose myself. And in doing so, I didn't destroy a family. I just removed myself from a system that was never fair to begin with. So, AITA? Because right now, I don't think I am. But the guilt is heavy, and I can't shake the feeling that, in their eyes, I always will be.